to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Power Talk Friday. If you've been listening to the show for a while, then you know that I've had a personal journey with productivity in my own business. Like so many business owners and creatives, I take on a lot, I know, probably too much from time to time. This leads to a never-ending list of tasks, long days, weekends working, and late nights. Well, not long ago, I revealed the outcome of the work that I have done with my productivity coach, Angela Kristen. So you should head back and look in the show notes for that episode number because it was a very interesting episode. I got a lot of feedback on it. Meanwhile, though, today's guest, Angela Kristen Taylor, is another fantastic productivity specialist. Like Amber de la Garza, Angela is not one to focus on just time management or plans. She believes that the key to unlocking productivity actually lies in our own emotions, experiences, and beliefs. She's an expert in what she has coined integrative productivity, where she helps her entrepreneur clients overcome their own internal chaos so that they can create the life and the business that they want. She is also the creator of the Limitless Collaborative, a one-of-a-kind virtual reality community for entrepreneurs, business professionals, and creators to work together, learn together, and grow together. Now, before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank our show sponsor, Monogram. They are committed to redefining the world of luxury appliances, which they believe comes down to every little detail. Monogram isn't just focused on providing the best luxury appliance. They are also determined to provide the best resources to support you, their trade partners. This is with the support of a national team dedicated to offering assistance to all of you. Learn more about the designer program at monogram.com/LuAnn. Now, Angela has some very unique insights on where our problems with productivity stem from and how to target them. Let's hear what she has to say about integrative productivity. Hi, Angela. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Oh, thank you, LuAnn, for having me here. I appreciate that.
Yes, Angela, you piqued my interest when I was reading about your business and what you do. Of course, it reminds me so much of my dear friend Amber de la Garza, who is a productivity specialist. And the listeners know that I've had my issues with productivity. And so, when I saw your website and what you do, and I thought, okay, sometimes we all need to hear things from 2 or 3, 4 or 5 different ways before we get the message, right?
Absolutely.
And yes. And your line here, productivity, is more than just plans, goals, and time management. And so tell me a little bit about this.
Well, the thing is that productivity is rooted in emotion. So oftentimes when we're looking for a productivity fix, what we're looking for is some magic pill that's going to all of a sudden make us do the things that we know we're supposed to be doing. We're just not doing them. And so we think, well, if I can manage my time better, or if I could have this planner because so-and-so has this planner and they said it was amazing and made them do everything, or if I could set some goals and really stick to them, or maybe I need this coach and they're going to hold me accountable and then it's going to make a big difference. But in reality, we have to look at why we're not doing the things we know we're supposed to do. It's not a matter of not knowing what to do. It's a matter of knowing why we're not doing them.
And so makes sense. But how do you, first of all, I guess in the big picture, how do you get to that and uncover that? But then in the more specific picture, that almost sounds like to me, then I need a therapist. And I don't mean that in a flip way. I mean in a real way, right? And so, but you
Yeah.
being an integrative productivity coach, how do you deal and help people with that?
Yeah, so it's really helping them by kind of making a connection for them of what emotions come up for them from their past that could be triggering things in their productivity today. And it's not just productivity, it's all the different things that they seem to be struggling with. So it can be, their relationships, it can be how they eat, or how they take care of their body, or how they talk to themselves, that self-talk, how they manage chaos, or if they have a lot of chaos or disorganization in their lives. Like those are all cues that let you know that if you're having issues in all of those areas, that there's something emotional going on behind it. And what I've found, 18 years of working with a variety of entrepreneurial clients, finding that uh, something like 98, 99% of them, I'd say, have had some sort of issue that can go back as far as into childhood, where somebody said something, somebody did something, or they had some sort of experience that made them feel like they were not in control of what happened to them in their lives. And so it could be something small, in the scheme of things, having a sibling that would pick on you and be kind of a jerk, I mean, we've all
Mm.
had situations like that.
We won't mention
Or
my brother today. Thank you. No.
or things
Actually, it
that
was mostly reverse, I have to say. Okay,
I know,
sorry.
right? But no problem. So, but it can be something as major as a, really abusive childhood. But I've seen the gamut, and what I'm saying is that you don't have to have been through kind of quote unquote child abuse to have an experience in your childhood or since that it triggers you emotionally, that makes you feel like you have not been in control of your life. And what I found is that the reason it's so predominant in entrepreneurs and people who have gone out and created a business for themselves is that they the same experience, a negative experience that said, you know what, somebody else made me feel like I was less than, or I was not in control over what happened to me. Nobody's going to do that to me again. I'm going to be in charge of me. And therefore, that same desire is what is driving them towards creating their own thing, is also driving the same negative self-talk and that emotional roller coaster that we find ourselves on often, where we're saying in 1 minute, oh, I'm going to make it, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have this beautiful experience and great business and lots of clients, it's going to be amazing. And then at the same time, we're saying, oh no, I can't do that, nothing works out for me, whatever. And then we kind of find ourselves teetering on this emotional roller coaster of trying to find balance and comfort in what we're doing and how we're providing services and things for others. And I know a lot of times for creative people, especially, they're wanting to help other people find beauty in their lives. And that's something that they often did not feel that they had enough of. So in a way, we're trying to always be the person that we needed but didn't have. And so yeah, I know that does kind of tend to run down that therapy line, and I'm no therapist, but I have found that helping people make that connection is usually enough to help them understand how it's showing up in other parts of their lives, especially in their productivity.
That's that's a that's a lot to take in, I have to
I
say.
I believe it.
It is. It's a lot to take in, and if I'm hearing you properly, I'm hearing that it the trigger that you often uncover with the clients that you work with doesn't have to be an obvious big deal thing. Like I would sit there and I would say to you, I had an amazing childhood, right? I mean,
Mhm.
now, did my parents get divorced? Did we? Yes, they did. Did we live in mansions? No, we did not. Were we,
Mhm.
working class. And I didn't even know how poor we were until I was, in high school and college. I was like,
Sure.
oh, we're actually really poor, right?
Hmm.
And see, but to me, that is also the wind back to what a great childhood I had,
Hmm.
because I felt happy and cared for and loved and yada, yada, yada. So,
Absolutely.
but the point is, I'm hearing you, even in a childhood or an experience and upbringing that lacked a significant event that you recall and understood as being uncomfortable or difficult or catastrophic to whatever level, then there's something still there in mind, is what you're saying.
It
That's what I'm
it
hearing. It could
could
be a little
be.
bitty
It
thing.
could be. I had a client who her whole issue around productivity was that if it wasn't perfect, it wasn't enough. It wasn't. It might as well have not been done.
Oh.
And going back into her experiences, she had a parent who made her feel that way about every single thing that she did in her life, that she
Mm.
was never good enough, and that if it wasn't perfect, she shouldn't even have bothered. And so it was affecting her in her life and actually preventing her from taking action because she felt like if there was any doubt in her mind of it being 100% perfect, of it not being that, then she wouldn't even bother trying. She wouldn't even start it.
Mm. I can see that. And the things that she was inclined and wanted to start, it could stop her from starting because
Hmm.
visualizing a less than perfect outcome just froze her in her tracks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, she claimed to have a wonderful childhood as well, and I
Right.
know that she did,
Right. Right. Right.
but it
Right.
was
Right.
just a parent with a good intention that went awry, you know?
Right. I mean, the pressure. I mean, honestly,
Hmm.
like I'm like, what
Absolutely.
are my kids all going through now? You know what I mean? It's like,
Hmm.
and so what are some of the other things that I guess we should probably maybe discuss at least one or two that are your obvious, my goodness, I cannot believe that happened to you in your lifetime events and how they show up in our productivity. But also, I think, too, if they have another example or two like that one, where it wasn't a traumatic event necessarily, but
Hmm.
this behavior in the dynamic of your family leads to something. Because I think that's how we recognize ourselves. Somebody probably just heard that and went, oh my goodness, that was me
Hmm.
and my mom, or me and my dad,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, sure. So, to give you an example of another seemingly harmless
Mm,
situation, had a client who simply had an older brother that would pick on her all the time and told her that she was fat and ugly and nobody wanted to hear anything she had to say.
mm,
And you know what? That can happen. We have siblings, and
mm-hmm,
siblings say stuff like that to each other all the time, seemingly just part of childhood. But when it came to helping her grow her business, she felt like every time she spoke up, nobody wanted to hear anything she had to say. She
mm,
had a hard time putting herself on video and speaking up or sharing her services or anything like that because she felt like she didn't look good enough. She was nobody wanted to hear her voice, and that if she did speak up, that people would respond by going in the other direction and actually being repelled by her in some way. And that's not the case. I mean, this is a beautiful woman we're talking about that, I mean, and that's regardless. But
right. It's
the
like
point is that
she's a human being and
she
has something to say, right?
exactly,
Right.
exactly. And that she wasn't even putting herself out there because in her mind, her brother's voice was running through her head and creating a story that she latched onto, and it was taking her through her life and affecting her personal life. It was affecting her business. It was affecting several different things. And it was certainly stopping her from growing her business because she felt like nobody wanted to hear her.
Mm-hmm. But the dichotomy in there, and you mentioned it a little bit, is that here is somebody that actually opened a business as opposed to taking a
Mhm.
job in the fifth cubicle down the hall where
Yes.
that would manifest it in nobody wants to see, hear, or from me, so I'll just go
Mhm.
into this cubicle. But she still went into business, so there's
Absolutely.
that push and pull, right?
Yes, exactly. And that comes from that feeling of, I don't want anyone to make me feel that way. I don't want anybody to tell me who I am or what I'm capable of. Therefore, I'm going to do this. But then again, it's striking that balance. Once you understand the concept, once she was able to understand that concept and see the connection, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I cannot believe I was letting my brother hold me back like that. That's ridiculous."
Mm.
And then she was able to start practicing it and getting out there, and it was more and more comfortable for her to do it simply because she was aware of where that feeling was coming from. Oftentimes we don't know where that feeling comes from. We just are stopping ourselves and we don't know
Mm.
why.
And all the more tragic if they have a good relationship, the sister and the brother, and
Absolutely.
openly, and what they thought subconsciously was just, we know we did that to each other, we were kids, but
Sure.
not really carrying it through. It's, in other words, so what you're saying is, it doesn't mean that for the last 40 years you've known that you've hated your brother. It's
Oh no.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just not realizing how something that was seemingly so small that you didn't even really think about it, that it comes out in these coaching sessions. And then you find out that, wow, that little thing was stopping me.
Mm.
But once you see the connection, you can't not see it anymore. And it's not, oh, I'm going to be so angry with my brother and go beat him up now. It's not like that. It's just a feeling of saying, oh, well, now I know where this comes from. But, he was a kid. He didn't know what he was doing. I can't believe I held on to this for so long. I didn't even know this was really still bothering me.
Right.
But now I see that it was really holding me back. So now I can let this go.
And do you find that with most people that it is, especially and particularly when it's not rooted in a legitimate traumatic catastrophic type of thing, right? So
Yeah.
like, we're not talking about, when in this question, we're not talking about abuse and all of that stuff, but
No.
when
Mhm.
someone is, do you find that most people, when they uncover that little trigger that really became, it's almost like the scab that came, or like the little rock in your shoe that just
Mhm.
gets bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah.
Is it really, do you find that most people, once they can identify it, it does fall away, or do you then now have to dig in and do the work sometimes to address it?
Well, I think it can go both ways, and it really depends on the impact of that experience. So I think that there are times when, and I've certainly had this experience with clients in all these different forms, but sometimes it is just that rock in your shoe. You take it out, and it's like, oh, I feel better now.
Right,
Awesome.
right.
Moving on. But there's times when it does require us to go back and do some more work, where we're doing things from a coaching level, where we're just walking through those experiences and how we felt about them then and how we feel about them now, and kind of mentally releasing that. But there are times when it is a much deeper issue, and there are times when people do need to go into therapy to resolve that.
Mm-hmm.
But it is something where at least now they are identifying it, they see where the problem is, and they're you know, most of the time, I will say I've had in a couple situations where people are like, oh, yeah, nope, not going to touch that one. I'll stay where I am. Thank you very much. You know,
I don't need to get
but
anything done anymore.
yeah,
I can be
like I don't want
non-productive.
to work on that. I'm not going there.
It's okay.
But
Productivity is overrated.
yes, right. But for the most part, people are willing to work on it. They do want to make themselves, their lives, their businesses better. And when they identify what that block is, they're willing to work on it. So depending on how deep that trauma went, as to what work needs to be done to release it.
And I'm just got to ask the obvious question here.
Sure.
Have you ever had it where you were working with somebody and you're just like, yep, can't find anything in your past. You're just lazy, or you're just not making a decision to do it. I mean, does it always come down to something, some crazy programming line that we picked up in our brain along the way?
I have to say that I have run into maybe two people in 18 years where we couldn't identify a source outside of outside of their own experiences.
Right.
That oftentimes, though, it just seems like in those cases, I will tell you that it just seemed like they weren't really opening up and
Mm,
wanting to talk about what was going on.
okay.
So both of those situations they were telling me very little and opening up very small amounts and not really going in deep.
Mm.
So I think in those cases, what they probably were deep rooted issues that they didn't want to delve
Mm-hmm,
into.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like going to a therapist and lying about the troubles. Like, what are we
Yeah.
really doing here, folks? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's
Yeah.
great.
It's like, I don't know.
I love my
Everything's great.
husband. I love
Yeah.
my kids. I love my boss.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all good.
Okay. Okay. I get it. All right. So it's interesting because I have been Amber De La Garza is my productivity coach, and I've been working with her at this point going on 9-10 months. And we had an episode a couple of months back where, we described this huge breakthrough that we had that she created in me in coaching with me. And for me, it was a tactical thing, but it was rooted in a belief that I had attached to the task that I was doing. And so
Yes.
I understand the idea of what you're talking about. So it didn't come from something way back in my childhood. It had come from a belief that I had built up around the business that I run. And
Yes.
when I was able to really, she pushed me through. She pushed me on this belief for several months. And I said in the show, I practically got to the point of doing the thing that I did, which was hiring writers, more almost as much from a standpoint of, okay, fine. You really think this will work? Fine. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think this is the answer, but fine. And also
Yeah.
really being at the end of my rope of time and
Yeah.
availability. And so it was a very interesting aha for me, and it has dramatically changed my life. Okay.
Yeah.
So telling you that as the backstory, the interesting thing is that I wonder if there is some trigger in my childhood, like you're describing, that affects me in this way. Because here's the thing. Now, as we've moved past that big hurdle, our next steps in the coaching with me is she says, well, how do you feel? And I'm like, well, I feel really great, but the days are still bears, right? And so now she's like, okay, you got to time track yourself. We got to see what's going on, right? And the crazy thing is I literally did time tracking for 2 weeks. I actually don't have time to eat. Like, it's legit, right? It's like I am not putzing around. I am not playing games on my phone. I am not like social media. I am legit working. And so the funny thing is what you're making me wonder now is, which I'm going to have to bring up to Amber, is maybe I actually am a really productive person, but good enough is never good enough for me. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Maybe, or it could be, and I don't know what all the different things that you have going on are, but why do you put so much in your life that you have no time to even eat?
Right. Well, see, now you sound like Amber. Yeah. So, okay. I thought it could be the other, that I'm really doing a great job. I just won't give myself credit for it.
Well, it could be either one, honestly. It really could. And it's just something that you have to determine for yourself. And I'm sure that Amber will help you with that.
Exactly. I mean, it's a normal sentence that Vin, when he comes in the house, he's like, did you eat lunch today? Like, it's a normal sentence.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh no, I did. I had some yogurt. Really? For reals, I did. Other days I'm like, nah, not today. Right. Yeah. Okay. So now the other thing is that, Angela, your particular childhood, it's right in your bio, really goes through that you really did have traumatic events with a really vicious custody battle, it describes, and having to take care of yourself and your 3-year-old brother when you were only 6 years old. So is there some lessons in there? I mean, you put it there. I'm assuming there's lessons in there, and that's why you want to, we talk about it, right?
Sure. I have to say that I feel like we all want to be the person that we did not have at some point in our lives. And so for me, I know that the reason that I discovered what I call integrative productivity coaching was because I was working on my own issues. I was working on my own levels of productivity. And so I was trying to figure out why I had so much chaos, why I was so disorganized, why I couldn't manage my time, but I wanted to experience a life that I really enjoyed, a life that I felt like I had time to enjoy myself and enjoy my family and not just be putting out fires or being stressed all the time. And I wanted more to my life. I wanted to achieve in my business and in my work, because I felt like my work has always been a service oriented. But I also wanted to, have a life at the same time. How could I do that? And so when I started working on healing my own issues, that's when I realized that my clients were likely suffering from the same issues that I had been.
Mm.
And so ordinarily, I think as a uh, productivity coaching has been oftentimes focused on a punishment or reward based system, saying, I'm going to hold you accountable and we're going to talk about what you're achieving or why you haven't achieved it.
Mm.
But in reality, when we're doing that, when we select a productivity coach and we're saying, hey, I need somebody to hold me accountable because I'm not getting enough done, then what we're looking for essentially is for this parental figure to come back in and serve as this, you're good or you're bad type of situation, like you
Right,
need to stay on the
exactly.
right path. And I didn't want to be that, and I knew that they didn't want that. And so when I started digging into deeper questions and asking them things about, like, well, how are you sleeping? And what's your diet look like? And what do your relationships look like? And what did it look like when you were a kid? What do those relationships with your family as a child look like now? That when we started going into those questions, and that's when I started making the same type of connections that I'd made between myself, my life growing up, and my business and how I was operating in my life and in my business, that I was able to help them make those same connections and then walking them through basically the same things that I had done for myself.
Mm. And how was it that, what was it that in the root of your trauma,
Hmm.
why did that show up as disorganization and clutter? In other words, you
Yeah.
said for a designer, maybe they're compelled to create beauty because
Hmm.
they missed the beauty in their childhood. So what is that relationship there for you?
Yeah. So for me, I think, as a child, because there was this vicious custody battle, we were moved around a lot. I remember in fifth grade alone, I think I went to four different schools,
Mm.
and so we were constantly moving. My dad had us throughout the year, but my mom would pick us up every single weekend, and then she had us all summer. And then there were times, like I know one time I woke up I would think I was 5 years old, and I had gone to sleep in my mother's house and woke up in the backseat of my father's car and had no idea how I'd gotten there.
Whoa.
And he had literally come into my mother's house and stolen me in the middle of the night. She didn't know where I was.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
there was another time when I was expecting my mother to come and get me for the weekend, come and get me and my little brother. And she showed up, but we weren't there. And my father had cleared out the entire house. And we didn't see her for 2 months.
Mm.
And she had no idea where we were. And he told us that our mother didn't want us anymore.
Right, right, right.
So, you know what I'm saying? It's like there was always this moving around. There was always these questions, these doubts. And so, as an adult, I literally was trying to, I don't know, maybe recreate that feeling of chaos because it was all that I knew.
Mm.
So when you are deep into chaos and that's all that you experience, what you find is that you don't know how to stop. You don't know how to slow down, because the feeling of stopping or slowing down, it's almost like something's going to catch up to you that you don't want.
Mm.
And so it's like you're always running. You're always running. And so chaos was showing up in my life. I mean, I was married by the time I was 20. I bought my first house when I was 19. I had four by the time I was 22. I was managing all these rental properties and getting my real estate license, and I was working as an assistant, and I was in this terrible relationship with this man who was bipolar, and I had no idea at the
Mm.
time. And I was just constantly go, 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 go all the time, not sit still. I was spending money on credit cards left and right. Wasn't even unwrapping things that I was buying. My finances were completely out of control. And I was literally 22 years old.
Wow.
So I had five dogs. Everything was constantly messy. My car was a mess. My house was a mess. everything was a disaster everywhere I looked in my life. And I have to say that I literally just didn't know how to breathe. I didn't know how to slow down enough to just take a deep breath. I didn't know how.
Wow. And
Yeah.
how did you break the cycle?
I really had to, I'll say that I think when my, uh, when my, it's funny, when my son was born, I was 25 and he was my first child. And I remember my dad and I hadn't spoken in like 2 years. And I went and I remember I sent him an email and I said, hey, I just wanted to let you know, just because you don't want anything to do with me, but I am pregnant. We're having a boy and I don't want him to not be able to have a relationship with you because of our relationship.
Mm.
And he wrote me back and said that he wanted us to have a talk and that it didn't have to be now, but that when we were home from the hospital and settled, he'd love to come and meet his grandson and talk to me.
Mm.
And so it was really wonderful because when I did have the baby, he came to the hospital, he said hi, and he gave me a hug, told me he loved me, and that he was really looking forward to having a conversation. And I was like, okay, that's great. And then he did. After we'd been home for a few days, he came over and we had a long talk. And he cried and I cried and
Oh.
he apologized to me. And it was a beautiful experience. And it was very, very healing.
Mm.
And that allowed me to really start. I felt like it gave me permission to start not only just to forgive him, but to understand more of the situation. So I think oftentimes, we'll look at especially our parents or siblings, anybody who's picked on us, somebody at school, whatever, and we'll look at it and we only see our own perspective. We only see how this person hurt us, right?
Right.
But we don't always look at the deeper experience. Why did this person hurt us? What did that do for them? Why did they feel the need to do this to us, right? So I can look back at my father specifically and say, well, yeah, he was a really hard parent to have. He really was. But I can look back and say, you know what? He was given up at birth by his birth parents.
Mm.
He was adopted by a family who paraded him around in a bow tie for a company and was raised by nannies.
Mm.
He didn't know what it was like to have a family or to be loved ever. And he had no idea what it was like to have somebody in his life that truly cared about him.
Mm.
So he was always behaving in almost like a survival mode factor. And in a, you're not going to get me, I'm going to get you first.
Right. Right.
And then everything he did made sense. It all made sense to me. And I could understand why he reacted in the way that he did. And that made it so much easier for me to not only forgive him, but empathize with him and his experiences and let go of the personal attachment that I had to what he had done. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense. What you're saying is that as a child and into your young adult years, you process it, everything he did, as an action to and
Mm-hmm.
against you. And
Yes,
after the conversation, you realize that he was a flawed human being that was just misstepping, mistaking, and doing all the stuff that it wasn't like, I'm doing this against my kid. It's like, just so flawed myself that I don't even realize what I'm doing.
exactly.
And I'm doing it in
Exactly.
reaction to my own childhood, my own
Yes,
upbringing. Yes. And
exactly.
it is true. In every situation, there's that reality, whether it's a simple
Mm-hmm.
interaction with our contractor or our client or our family and our friends and the people in our real life as opposed to our
Yeah,
business life, right? Everybody
absolutely.
has the other side of the story. And
Mm-hmm.
it almost sounds like you two were commodities to your dad. You were like the way he was a pawn
Mm-hmm.
in his adoptive parents' life. It was,
Exactly.
you were a commodity. Okay, I'm
Yes,
having her win. I'm going to win, and it's like
exactly.
picking up, laundry. It's like, let's just take the
Yes.
laundry here. It's my laundry,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right.
Very, very much like that. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
horrible. What a sin. But the thing is, what you're saying is that once you have that understanding, then you sort of can just let it all fall aside and now do the inner work on yourself to address the real effects of it. But I think it's just that understanding that it's not about you as much as what happened to you is a
Mhm.
horrible result, but it never was about you.
Yes, but again, a couple of things in that is that one, not everyone is able to do that on their own.
Right. Of
And
course.
I'll say that you have to look at your situation and say, do I need help with this?
Right.
Am I
100%.
able to do this on my own? And I'll tell you, I did not do it completely on my own. I had more conversations with my dad that were very open and honest. I worked with a therapist. I, at times, was on anti-anxiety medication. I had panic attacks.
Mm.
I worked through a lot of books and looking at documentaries and speakers and listening to people who had been through things like that, and really used all of so many different tools
Mm.
in my path to overcoming this,
Mm.
and also looking at other things like my diet and how I was eating, how I was talking to myself. I had to basically look at everything I was doing and saying, what am I doing here and how does this affect me? Because we ultimately are in control of what we experience. We're in control of that. And so when we let go of everything is happening to me, like we were saying about, experiences in our childhood, this is happening to me,
Right.
we can say, okay, well, yeah, this is happening to me, but I have the ability to curate my reaction to
Right.
this and how I'm going to deal with what I've been handed. Okay. And so, one thing that I can tell you is that people who have been through whatever experience, right, whatever negative experience they've been through in their lives, it doesn't have to go all the way back to childhood, but we've been through something, we can, and we all have, we can say at that point, if we're brave enough after all that to go out and build our own business and take control of our own lives and say, I'm going to create my own experience, I'm going to build my own business, I'm going to be somebody that I didn't have when I needed them, I'm going to be that person for someone else. There is so much courage and bravery in that. And so now we have to look at that and say, well, I've been brave enough to do this. I was brave enough to survive what I've been through. And guess what? I don't have to play small. I don't have to. Nobody's here telling me what I'm going to be and what I'm not going to be. Only I'm doing that.
Mm.
And so when we take ownership of that, and then we say, you know what? I am going to eat better. I am going to take care of myself. I am going to get more sleep. I am going to take breaks and actually enjoy myself. I'm going to create a schedule for myself that feels really nurturing, not only for me personally, but for my business as well and for my clients. Then everything starts to come together. Productivity is effortless after that.
Well, okay. No. No, I hear you. I hear you. And I want to just say that when I said a few moments ago, when you can see the root cause, then things can fall away. There's not 1 second that I did think that something like that experience falls away without all the work that you mentioned. I just meant that it opens the door. Now you actually know what you're dealing with and therefore you can deal with it, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and I hear you. Okay. So, I don't know why I don't think it's important to eat on a regular basis and get enough sleep, but I'll figure it out.
Okay, good. Hmm.
No, I mean, this is what an experience that you have personally been through, and that, like so many others, regardless of the field, we see it turn up. We see it turn up in the medical field. We see it turn up in,
Hmm.
the Amber Alert because a child was missing. It's like so often that our lives are enhanced when people like yourself really draw the line in the sand and do, as you say, do the work to uncover it and then come out the other side empowered and emboldened to
Hmm.
help others in that
Yes.
position, right?
Hmm.
That's the gift, that you turn around and you say, I did all the work on me, but you know what? I could look sideways at you and see if I can help you too. Pretty
Yes.
amazing,
Hmm.
Angela. It's pretty incredible.
Thank you.
And so today, how do people work with you? So is it one-on-one coaching? I know you have a community. Tell us a little bit
Hmm.
about what people could expect if they are attracted and are interested in what you're helping people do.
Sure. So, as I said, I've been a coach and a consultant for the last 18 years, and I love the work that I do. I have worked one-on-one and in groups. I still do that. However, one of the things that I realized in working with so many entrepreneurs over the years is that so many of us are stuck in these issues with our productivity, and we have all these intentions to go out there and do these specific actions, take specific actions to grow our business, to generate more leads for our business, to make more money, and help more people. And what happens is we get so stuck on everything that we feel like we have to do that we actually stop ourselves from doing the one thing that's most important that we do, which are the actions that bring us income. And one of the reasons why I built the community that I did was because I knew that entrepreneurs needed to not be alone. They needed to be able to work with others who understood them. They needed to be able to have access to experts and resources and services that were going to help them build and grow. They needed to be in a space where they could work side by side with other
Mm.
people, get a second pair of eyes on something they're worth. If you're creating a proposal for a client and you're like, I don't know, you're kind of
Yes,
like
yes.
questioning it and before you send it out, and
Should
then you
I
kind of
hit
just close
send?
your
Should I
eyes,
take
take a deep breath.
$200 more off before I
Yes,
send it?
right.
Right.
Exactly. And how great would it be to be working in a community with other people who get it, who are like, yeah, you know what? You totally are worth this. Send it out. Don't take $200 off your price. Send it out. You'll be surprised. They're going to accept it. They're going to think, oh my gosh, you priced this too low. We love you. You know?
Right?
And we need that type of support. And the thing is that I knew somebody that had created this amazing virtual reality software program, and it's become very popular. And I decided to pair that with my ideas for entrepreneurs and healing productivity and created this virtual reality community. So it looks like a video game platform, but as you're walking around with your little avatar, you can turn your microphone on and talk, and you can attend classes and events and specific focused co-working blocks, and you can go and walk into a coach's office and have a conversation. And there's things that are life focused, like relationships and parenting and nutrition and fitness and all of these things. But there's also all the business growth focused as well. And then all these entrepreneurs coming together to work together and support each other. It's like everybody's holding each other up. And that is the biggest um, achievement that I feel like I have made to this point in my business and in my career, is being able to bring a community to hold space for entrepreneurs to come in and connect with each other and help support each other.
Sounds remarkable. Really sounds
Thank you.
remarkable.
Thank
And
you.
is it strictly for entrepreneurs? Is that a requirement, or are other, you could be the vice president of a department or something like that?
Well, we have it specifically designed so that it is entrepreneurs, independent business professionals, and creators.
Mm.
So that really opens the door to a lot of different types of people. I'll say that some of the people that we've had join us are, we have a naturopathic doctor, we have fitness instructors,
Mm.
dietitians, we have realtors and attorneys, and we even have a mentalist who used to perform on a cruise ship. Does like the little magic shows.
Wow. Yeah.
So we've had a lot of different types of people join us, coaches, consultants, things like this. So it really is just, if you're sitting at home and you're working by yourself, or you feel like you need support from others who understand you, then it's a good spot for you to be.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, it, it, it it's I don't know where I'm struggling with the sentence, because there is so much that we can learn if we just sit and reflect on all the different influences, good and bad, that we've had in our own life, right? And start to
Mm-hmm.
identify, as you call them, triggers,
Hmm.
incidences, moments. And, it's like what the sin of it is when we forget the connection, that the story in our head is not real, that it was planted or we picked it up by some outside thing, like the young woman who her brother said that she was fat and nobody wanted to hear her. It just
Yeah.
becomes the story in her own head. And
Yeah.
and that's the sin of it. I know that when I work and teach designers and window treatment professionals about sales, we talk
Mm-hmm.
about the story between your ears. I don't
Mm-hmm.
take it all the way back to where did you learn it and all of that, but I
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of our money stories do come
Mm-hmm.
from those experiences. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I've really usually do an exercise where I say, tell me your money story. Tell me something your parents did or say. And if you have
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6 people in the room, you're usually going to get 5 or 6 different stories. And then I just say,
Mm-hmm.
listen, every one of your clients has their own money story too. So, and when you look at somebody sitting next to you and they tell
Mm-hmm.
you their and they don't know what's their money story. They tell you, you
Mm-hmm.
ask them, what did your parents say? What did they learn about money? What are their
Mm-hmm.
feelings about it, right? Are you a
Yeah.
saver? Are you a spender? Are you a
Mm-hmm.
person who shows your money? Somebody that hides it, right? All the different things
Mm-hmm.
that we do. The thing is, when you take it to the next step and you ask somebody and say, you believe that you shouldn't be ostentatious with your money. You believe that,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's you're committed to that. You think it's vulgar or whatever it is, and they're like, yes, exactly. It's not polite. It's not this. And I say, so that's real for you, right? Like that's real. Yes. So this person over here has a Maserati, a Mercedes, and walks around and goes to whatever, whatever, whatever. That's real for them. You see,
Mm-hmm.
they think that's a sin that you can't show all the money that you've made. They don't think it's vulgar. I'm not judging which one of you is right or wrong. I'm just pointing
Mm-hmm.
out that both are so real to you. And so when
Yeah.
you go and do an interaction, when you're trying to sell to a client, when you bring your real money story there, not
Mm-hmm.
realizing that their money story is completely different, this is how you miss the opportunity to grow your business because you're
Yes.
thinking about you instead of inquiring and asking about them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I can give you a very good example of that in my own life where I was growing up. My mother's mantra, like she said it all the time, was life's a bitch and then you die.
Whoa. That's
And
some kind of
I
programming.
literally, yes, and let me
That's
tell
some
you,
programming.
my anxiety and my panic attacks that I've had all up until just maybe 10 years ago all stemmed from me thinking that if my life got into any way where I felt like life was good, I'd immediately start going to panic attacks thinking I was going to die.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
And it was only when I connected that she had told me that my entire life that I realized, wow, I am literally attaching myself to thinking that if my life is good, then I'm about to die because it must be over if it's not bad anymore.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah,
That's
right?
pretty remarkable. I mean, the truth is, I have been raised with the Silva method and all of the great thinkers. Tony Robbins is my
Mm-hmm.
contemporary, but Og Mandino and Napoleon Hill and Zig Ziglar.
Mm-hmm.
And words matter. What you say
Oh,
to the universe
absolutely.
matters. Huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow, that's remarkable.
Yeah. So when you start realizing this is the thing that you have to do is when you hear what that story is and you understand what that story is and where it's coming from, then you have to say to yourself, how do I rewrite this? How do I rewrite this story so that it's different?
Right.
So I can take all of the experiences that I had where I was moved around a lot as a child and say, well, guess what? I have taken those experiences and here's what they've given me.
Mm-hmm.
They've given me the ability to be able to strike up a conversation with anyone, anywhere, at any time. And they feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've known you my whole life. How did you do that?
Mm.
I would not have gotten that if I had not moved around so much.
Right. 16 different schools in 5 years, right? I have to
Right?
compete being the new
Absolutely.
girl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now I know so much how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, I did a few years ago, I did a fire walk. And that they talk about that before you go and do the firework, and they talk about how you tell yourself the story that these coals, they're going to burn your feet.
Mm-hmm.
They're hot coals, and when you walk across them, your feet will burn, your feet will blister. And yet when you walk across them after the fact, you realize, well, that wasn't true. It didn't hurt at all.
Right.
It didn't even feel hot. What's the story there? If I'm telling myself and I see it, that these hot coals are going to burn my feet, and then I walk across them and realize, they didn't. What other stories am I telling myself that aren't true?
Right. Right. It's so true. We have to look at the programming that we have picked up from others and that we have just baked into our brains. And
Hmm.
and we can rewire, we can reprogram. It takes a lot of work, and it takes intention, and it takes focus, and it takes paying attention, right?
Yes.
It takes paying.
Self-awareness.
Right, exactly. It's being aware of it first, and then, attaching the work to it secondly. Incredible. Incredible. I have to say, Angela, it's amazing. The conversation was terrific. I'm so thrilled. Such eye opening information. How do people reach you? What should they do if they're interested in learning more about you?
Well, I can tell you a good step for anyone who has heard this and recognized themselves in any of our conversation. I do have a 5-day productivity challenge, which gives you a lot of tools and um, just information to help you make those connections for yourself. And that is on my coaching and consulting website, which is productivesouls.org, and that's free. They can jump on there and take that anytime they like. Videos are all up, so they can just run through them all if they like, or take them a day at a time. And then if they are interested in learning more about that community for entrepreneurs that we've created, that is at thelimitlesscollaborative.com.
All right. TheLimitlessCollaborative.com
Mm-hmm.
and productivesouls.org.
That's right.
Awesome. Angela, thank you so much. Really, really enjoyed our conversation. I appreciate your spending your time here with us and sharing your intimate story. It's a profound story. It's remarkable all the more how you go on to help other people coming through that. So thank you.
Well, thank you, LuAnn, for taking the time to talk to me today. And likewise, I enjoyed it very much. And I'm hoping that this helps your listeners. So thank you.
It's interesting, isn't it, to think about productivity from the standpoint of patterns and habits and beliefs that we have formed from our childhood, right? It's not something I've actually thought about before, but I'm certainly thinking back now and wondering if some of my habits weren't formed based on experiences as a child, right? The interactions that we have as children do shape us, some good and some bad. And it's sort of enlightening to start to ponder this. I've told you before, as a mom, I've always told my kids, you can't change others, but you can change your reaction to them. And this is something that I've always emphasized. In a lot of ways, that's what Angela is talking about here, right? Good or bad, we're carrying around the experiences we've had. In these experiences are the things that affect us and hold us back. Then we need to be aware, right? Because we need to understand how we're letting them change who we are. From that point, if we have that awareness, then we can start to do the work to change our reactions to overcome the beliefs that we form and ultimately to take control of the way that we choose to show up in the world. It's a pretty smart concept on her part, I have to say. And I have to say also, it was funny, when I started working with Amber de la Garza, I didn't give much of a thought to underlying beliefs. I just wanted to not be working all the time, every day, every weekend, right? I just wanted to have the space, okay? But both Amber and Angela have shown me that there's so much more to productivity than just being better at managing the day-to-day time clock, all right? And this was something that I learned the hard way from targeting my own beliefs that I was carrying around about the podcast. So, as I said, go back to episode 577, where Amber and I shared this process, okay? And then the other thing is, as Angela says, a productivity coach should be more than just a reward punishment type of coach who tells you what to do and stays on you until you do it. Because the real work is in understanding the why. That's what she's telling us. Why do you do it? What is the emotion and the beliefs behind it? Okay. So if you're struggling with your own productivity, it might be time to stop searching for a magic fix, right? And you have to do the work looking in. I love how Angela points out that it's not that we don't know what to do, right? Most of the time, we know exactly what we need to do in order to be more productive and manage our time better. But if we haven't addressed the why are we holding ourselves back? What are the deep-rooted beliefs shaping the way we show up in our business? Then it's hard to push through and make that change. And I have to say, sometimes you just can't figure those out on your own. Sometimes you need somebody else to help shine a light on that and give you the kick in the pants you need to get you out of that mindset. hand up right here, okay? So if this resonates with you and you want to start tackling your own productivity issues, then Angela has a free resource for you. Her 5-day productivity challenge that will help you get started. You can find that at productivesouls.org. All right, productivesouls.org. And if you're ready for something a little bigger, a little greater, how about her amazing creation, the Limitless Collaborative? It's such a unique solution in a virtual reality community that gives you a place to interact with other entrepreneurs, attend classes, get coaching, whatever you need to help you get your specific issues, okay? Some focus on them, all right? Not just in your business, but in your life, okay? Now, we've been talking for months about COVID and isolation and how many of us have been struggling with that. Well, this is a great outlet for finding ways to connect and to grow, all right, even though we're all at home. So you can learn more about that at thelimitlesscollaborative.com. All right. And speaking of tech that can make your life easier, let's talk about our sponsor, Kravit, shall we? Have you checked out their innovative program, Kravit I Create? It makes it easier than ever to customize your furniture. You can design chests, tables, ottomans, benches, beds, and upholstery right there just in a few clicks on Kravit.com. All right. And before we end, if you haven't heard, if you're living under a rock, the 3rd book is coming out, okay? Pre-sale will start with our fabulous book launch party on December 10th, okay? We're going to have a great event with my 9 co-authors. The book is called A Well-Designed Business, The Power Talk Friday Experts, Volume 2, and it is full again of so many wonderful lessons from our trusted Power Talk Friday experts, okay? This is the book that you need to get your hands on as you navigate growing and scaling your business. For more information, go to LuAnnNigara.com/launch, okay? That's where you're going to be able to get on the list so that you know when the registration is open. LuAnnNigara.com/launch. All right. And of course, this is the prelude to LuAnn Live. It's about the conversation coming in February 2021. The virtual conference is the place to be, okay? If you want more, you want really interactive, those conversations with my experts, this is the place to be. All right. So if you come to the book launch, you'll be on the list to get the information for LuAnn Live when that registration opens. Okay. So LuAnnNigara.com/launch. All right. Thank you so much, Angela. I love that I have had the privilege to have 2 amazing ladies on this show talk about the deep insights into productivity. This is, one of those conundrums, right? So it is always fun to learn about it from another perspective because you never know what's the little piece of advice that just unlocks that thing for you that makes it clear, right? It's that little aha moment. I hope you had one today. Thank you so much for joining me. Decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.